Welcome to the Big Four Accounting Firms podcast, brought to you by big4accountingfirms.com. Today we have some pretty big news. There's many people in denial around the world saying there's no recession. We're going to have a soft landing from inflation, from global inflation. But it seems that there's layoffs. And they've, for the most part, so far, been exclusive to the technology industry. And that's what a lot of jobs reports have shown. Like maybe it's just tech and maybe it'll stay in tech, and tech actually isn't that big of a part of the workforce. But now layoffs have come to the Big Four, and they've come to the US in the Big Four. And they've come to KPMG, which is always the first Big Four accounting firm to lay people off. They love laying people off. They just need the excuse, and then they love laying people off. That's why I am biased on this podcast, because KPMG, in my opinion, is the worst Big Four to work for. And there's people that'll debate me saying, they're not that different. And maybe to some people they aren't that different, but to me they are different. They're all very cold, they're all very professional, but KPMG is different in the way that they don't care about their employees. And if I can help people in their career, that is one thing I will tell them. Don't even waste your time working for KPMG unless you can't get a job at one of the other Big Four and you really want to work there. That would be the only reason. Or if you know a partner that you really like there, and that partner's going to look out for you. That would be the other way. But let's get to the news. Today, KPMG announced that they're going to lay off 2% of their workforce in the U.S. And all of the 2%, as is being reported right now, is going to be out of advisory or consulting. And we've said this over the years. Of all the years this podcast has gone on, yeah, it's really great to work in consulting until it's not. Until there's a downturn in the economy, and they're always the first to get laid off, and they always have the most layoffs because their jobs make money when the economy's great, and everybody wants to do every kind of consulting possible. And a lot of it's M&A related or transaction related, or maybe it's private equity right now. And all those industries that have done really well, M&A and private equity, are slowing down. And so you don't need all those people anymore. And that's the thing with the Big Four accounting firms too. Like once your utilization starts tanking, that's why the Big Four have you constantly following that metric. Because if your utilization tanks and they look at you as somebody that needs to go. Another group of people they always let go is the internal firm people, like the administrative staff. KPMG loves firing those people, and they've also been outsourcing a lot of that administrative work. But I also wanted to look to KPMG's global revenues. Now, in fiscal year 22, KPMG just reported that they made $34.64 billion. And that represents about 13% growth. And 19% of that growth came from advisory, 10% from tax, and 8% from audit. So advisory was their largest growing practice. And yet they're going to be cutting all their people from advisory. So that's the amazing thing about advisory, is that they make KPMG the majority of their revenue, and yet they're laying people off there. So that's the one thing for people that are going to work in advisory, you're always going to be risking, is that you're going to get laid off. Now, you're going to make good money in the big years, but in the off years, you're not going to do so well and you could lose your job. And KPMG is just the first. If we take the approach that they did with COVID, KPMG was the first, and it was a shock. But then the other Big Four started following suit. And I think they will as well, because Deloitte has a big consulting practice, PwC and E&Y as well. And they're all going to be looking to cut people. And the easiest place to cut is advisory, because they're not bringing in the revenues. The M&A and the private equity will be good. And a lot of the elective advisory stuff that people do during nice times will be going out the window as well. So, and the way the numbers about the economy are presented, places might not be in a recession, but the recession is coming soon enough, or some kind of economic downturn, whether the numbers are fudged or not. There's some kind of downturn that's causing a lot of people to lay off a lot of people and cut their costs. And I'm seeing it all over the place of people cutting costs. And I mean, every company is doing this right now. Every earnings report that you hear, people are talking about cutting costs. A lot of tech companies, but a lot of the biggest companies in the world are trying to trim costs. Facebook or Meta, they love to waste money, but they're stopping and they're cutting a bunch of costs. A lot of companies are cutting costs. Big Four always love cutting costs. A lot of people that do the day in the life videos, the ones they do at the day in the life and the Big Four are the the days where there's conferences or where somebody in the group buys food for everybody. But you don't see them all the time because Big Four love saving money. Yeah, you might give some free Flavia in the office that you go to, but that's about as fancy as it gets unless it's busy season. And I can tell you from the last economic downturn, even the busy season expenses start getting scrutinized during this period. Because before the last financial downturn, expenses in the Big Four weren't really that big of a deal. You could expense the craziest stuff you wanted to, but after the economic downturn, they just started scrutinizing expenses like crazy. And I'm sure it'll go back to that again. But in summary, KPMG is laying off about 700 people, and they're the first to do it in the United States. And this is the first Big Four to do it. So we'll keep track of this. So make sure to subscribe to this podcast and check out the show notes. Thanks for listening.